Hello and welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined today by Tim Martinez, and no better person than our high school sports coordinator to go through some of the highlights of the fall 2023 sports season. We have the top 10 moments that we think really brought a lot of excitement and kind of wove the fabric for the high school sports season that just ended this past weekend. But first of all, thanks to First Pacific Financial. We're coming to you from the First Pacific Financial studio. Thank you to them for allowing us to use the setup and this equipment. And we got a lot of great ideas for some future podcasts in the next couple of weeks that we will be happy to bring to you from this space. But before we look forward, let's look back and go through the top 10 moments that we chose for the high school sports season in fall of 2023. Number 10, we're going to go to an exciting play in the middle of the 2A Greater St. Helens League football season. Hudson's Bay versus Ridgefield, 2:35 left. Ridgefield had just taken a 24-21 lead. Raphael Bauman returns the ensuing kickoff 86 yards for a touchdown to give Hudson's Bay a 28-24 win over Ridgefield. That improved the Eagles, who were picked near the bottom of the league, to 4-0 at the time. They started the season 5-0 and kind of unveiled what would be a pretty chaotic 2A Greater St. Helens League football season, one full of unpredictability and tight games. The Eagles went on to get into tiebreaker at the end, get the number 3 seed into the district playoffs, and reach the postseason for the first time since 2017. Tim, you were there at Ridgefield Stadium that day. What do you remember about that moment?
Well, I remember the whole game was, a competitive game. It was a game in which, Ridgefield was able to show that they could run the ball and effectively move the ball against Ridgefield. And then late in the game, Ridgefield made some plays on defense and on offense, set themselves up for what looked like to be the go-ahead was the go-ahead field goal with just a little under 3 minutes to go. And then, Raphael Bauman, explosive player, got the kickoff return. And I remember when they kicked it off to him, I was thinking, are they going to squib this or, whatever. And they kicked it to him, and he found an alley and broke free. And the whole sort of vibe in the stadium flipped around in a very short time, from a very exciting, field goal kick to a big play for Bay that, again, like you said, kind of kicked off the crazy competitive nature of the 2A Greater St. Helens League this year.
I got the sense that was really the game where Hudson's Bay started to believe. Ridgefield had been among the top teams in the Greater St. Helens League the past few years, and here Hudson's Bay goes into their house, knocks off the Spudders, and at that point, I got a sense, seeing Bay the next week in their win against Mark Morris, that really flipped a switch for them. How was the atmosphere in the post-game huddle?
It was very, very energetic, very emotional. Everyone, they were like, people didn't believe in us. And it wasn't so much that, people didn't believe in them. It's just that the games that they had played leading up to those games, they hadn't really, if you look at how those teams finished the season, I think they opened this season with Heritage week 1, and then I think they played Kings Way in week 2, and week 3 was Prairie. Teams that didn't win a whole lot of games. And so even though they won those games impressively, it's kind of like, well, how are they going to match up when they play, a quality opponent? And they came out and showed that they can hang with, the best teams in the league. And it was just a very emotional night for the Eagles.
Nice. Our number 9 moment, we go to the state swimming championships, and Ridgefield, a small school, hadn't had a swimming program for very long, but Rebecca Yamada became the school's first state swimming champion. She goes and wins the 100-yard breaststroke, by nearly 3 seconds to deliver that program its first swimming state championship. She had arrived recently, moved with her family from Arizona. She cut nearly a second off of her time that she recorded in the preliminaries. And Tim, again, you were there in Federal Way away when Rebecca won that state championship. You kind of were talking beforehand about how we were going to wait and see kind of who stepped up the most among our local swimmers at the state championships, and certainly Rebecca Yamada did.
Yeah, every year in swimming, it's you wait to see they get through districts, and you wait to see what times they put up, because everyone, swimming is a build-up to swim your best at the end of the season. And then you wait for those heat sheets to come out at the state meet to see how these times compare statewide. And, when those heat sheets came out, Rebecca was a top seed in the breaststroke, and there were other two-way swimmers who were also, top 5 seeds. And so it was like, okay, this is going to be, an event to go check out. And schedules worked out. I started the day at a Ridgefield soccer game at noon up in Fife, which is just down the road, and then finished up down at the Federal Way at the state meet. It's the second year I've been to the state meet. It's a cool event. I hadn't been there before. And she and Rebecca came out and improved on her time, because a lot of times, a lot of teams, swimmers from down here, they'll get to that state meet and they'll just start to cut time in the prelims. And again, in the finals, Rebecca did that. And I remember being at the state meet last year and having somebody from Ridgefield saying, hey, we've got some Ridgefield kids here, and we haven't had anyone at the state meet before. This was last year, and now they returned, and not only did they return, but they got a state champion. So that was a cool moment.
Well, just how important is that for building a program to be able to point to a state champion and say, hey, you don't, it doesn't matter if we're a new program or a small school, you come here, you can become among the best in the state.
Yeah, well, it's it's an interesting situation for Ridgefield, because they don't have a pool at Ridgefield, so they're in the past they've combined with like the Hawkinson program and the Battleground program, and they do a co-op. They used to swim at the Clark County YMCA, but this year the teams practice out at the Gold's Gym in Camas. It was a long trek to make out and go out there for practices and stuff. So they had about 6 swimmers. And even though they only had 6 swimmers from Ridgefield, they had a relay place in the top 4. So that's 4 of the 6. It certainly helps when you have a new arrival from Arizona and Rebecca. And they also had Medea Russo in there. So, yeah, I think it's going to create a little more excitement for people to go, hey, maybe I should go out for swimming at Ridgefield.
Our number 8 moment, we go to one of the budding small school football rivalries in Southwest Washington, La Center versus Seton Catholic. And this was quite a good football game at Seton Catholic, which had kind of surprised a lot of people. They had gone undefeated through the Tri-Co League season until they reached the game with the perennial power La Center. And Seton Catholic gets out to a 13-0 lead, shuts out La Center through 3 quarters. Then the Wildcats rally in the 4th quarter. They finally get the go-ahead touchdown with less than 2 minutes left. Quarterback Houston Coyle connects with Parker McKinney on a 25-yard touchdown pass. That wraps up La Center's 5th straight Tri-Co League title. And basically, I think, considering what Seton Catholic went on to do in reaching the state semifinals, it pulled back the curtain to debut what I think is going to be one heck of a small school football rivalry. Tim, you were there. What do you remember about that game?
I think I remember about it is, we knew that Seton Catholic had improved, and they were much better and they've been making steady improvement. The question was how much of a gap would they have closed between La Center? Because last year, I think La Center beat Seton Catholic, it was like 70-21 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so, Seton came right out, and, they were a team that had early in the season had thrown the ball a lot, and they were mixing in the run, and they were just running right at La Center and playing very good on defense. And again, they led 13-0. The thing I remember about it, it was the first Friday of the season that was rainy. It was, well, not heavy rain, but a persistent, steady rain. Maybe that, impacted the way both teams attacked the game that night. And then in the 4th quarter, La Center started to figure things out, scored a touchdown there with about 2 minutes to play. And then Seton came down and was inside the 20 in the final minute, and it took an interception in the end zone. The Seton ran a reverse in which the quarterback leaks out and they throw it back to the quarterback. But Houston Coyle saw it, he knew it, he recognized it, and got over and covered it and threw and got the interception. It's a thrilling win. I think it's going to be again, like I said, a precursor. I mean, both these teams are junior led, and there'll be both teams will be very good next year, and especially given the way that Seton made its postseason run, I think it's setting up for future rivalry set up here in the long run.
All right, our number 7 moment will stay in football and go to the 2A Greater St. Helens League and Woodland. They had a Week 9 game. All the chips on the table against Ridgefield. Winner gets the league title, and Woodland gets the win, 28-21. Elijah Anderson gets a pass breakup on the final play to seal the win. That caps a night in which he had 3 touchdowns, and just that game and that moment and the celebration that followed really was the culmination of a great season for Woodland, one that has seen a pretty meteoric rise from that program under second-year coach Sean McDonald. Like I said, the first Greater St. Helens League title since 2007. And I think we sort of have been watching Woodland and Elijah Anderson ever since the start of the league season, where pretty early they knocked off the preseason favorite Washougal. But we were kind of always wondering, are they more than just the one-man show? And they showed it in that Week 9 game where the stakes were the highest, knocking off Ridgefield to wrap up that league title. Just how fitting of a capstone was that for Woodland to wrap up the 2A GSHL title in that way?
Well, it was just great that it comes down to Week 9 and one game for the league title, and the stakes were even higher than that. And if you could imagine, I mean, for Woodland, if Woodland had lost, they would have been the number 2 seed. They would have been home in the Week 10 playoffs. But for Ridgefield, they dropped back into a 3-way tie, had to go good in tiebreaker, which they eventually didn't win, which put them on the road to Tumwater. So it ended up being Ridgefield went from hoping to be number 1 to being number 4, and I think, like you said, it was kind of a culmination of the rise of the Woodland program under Sean McDonald in these 2 years, and it was just a great moment, a big game. Woodland got up, I think it was like 28-7 at one point, and Ridgefield battled back and nearly rallied back. So it was, I know talking to Meg about it, she thought after halftime she was like, "Oh, this game's looking like it could get away," and turned out to be a great game with a great finish. Well,
and it really showed, the impact of a player like Elijah Anderson, who not only scores a bunch of touchdowns on offense, is a key player on defense. Very fitting that he gets that final pass broken up to seal the win and cap really a season where he set the tone along with his teammates. Our number 6 moment, we go to Seton Catholic again. We touched on them and how they kind of showed everybody when they narrowly lost to La Center that they were for real. Well, they really showed people they were for real when in the state quarterfinals, they go on the road, a long road trip to Wenatchee to play Kashmir, which has a track record of success in the 1A state playoffs. Well, not only does Seton stick with Kashmir, they rally in the fourth quarter. 5-minute span, they score 3 touchdowns to take the lead. Then Riker Willis intercepts a pass with 1 minute 9 seconds to play to seal a 42-35 win over Kashmir and book a trip to the state semifinals. I mean, if you were kind of thinking Seton Catholic was just sort of a feel-good story. They make the state playoffs for the first time in program history, but what are they going to do when they actually get in there? They got to go on the road, long, 5-6 hour bus ride to Wenatchee, play against a team that has been to the state playoffs multiple times in recent years. There's no way they were going to, not only win, but come from behind and win. Well, Seton proved everybody wrong.
Yeah, and they did it by, scoring. They were a high scoring. You kind of figured that once they get to the playoffs, they would have games like the La Center game. This low scoring defense, you got to make a play. but they kept scoring. They scored, I think it was 56 against Kings, and they scored, 49 in this game. They put up 50-something in the Week 10 against Tenino. They just kept just outscoring teams. And I think that was, impressive, especially coming down from 2 touchdowns down in the fourth quarter against, a really good Kashmir team. I think the team that you saw last year.
Beat La Center in the state playoffs. Yeah, and I think it speaks to the playmakers that Seton Catholic has, which, by the way, they're almost all going to be back next year. They have a great young quarterback in Colton Gesser, multiple playmakers, Joe Kalarami, Jacob Williams, Riker Ellis, like we said, Ryan Stuck. And so with that kind of offensive firepower, they really showed what they could do in the state playoffs.
Yeah, I think it sets the table for an exciting 2024 for the Cougars.
Yeah. Our number 5 moment, we go to volleyball and the Yakima Valley Sun Dome, and one of the most dominating performances that I think we've ever seen at the state tournament, certainly by any team from Clark County. Columbia River wins its 3rd straight Class 2A state volleyball title, and the one common thread between the 3 state championship teams in a row has been Lauren Dreves. Lauren Dreves, the Auburn commit, one of the best outside hitters in the state. She gets the final kill to end her high school career with a state championship where the Rapids only lost 1 set all year. They just rolled through the state tournament, including going up 14-0 in the first set of the semifinals against Burlington Edison. I remember being there and just seeing the focus on that team the entire day. They were on a mission, and it turned out kind of how it has been in the past 3 years, where they go up against Ridgefield, their 2A Greater St. Helens League rival, a Ridgefield program that, by the way, has reached the state title game the last 5 tournaments. But there was no stopping Columbia River on this one. They just blitzed through everybody. And I interviewed Lauren Dreves just earlier this week. She's going to be our All-Region Volleyball Player of the Year, obviously. And I asked her to sum up the season in one word, and she went to that word that I opened this segment with, dominant. And I couldn't disagree with her.
Yeah, it's it's amazing to have a team that go out and win 3 state championships like that. I think any kind of run of that is sort of historic. But you kind of think about Ridgefield. They've been the second best team in their league, and they end up being the second best team in the state 3 years running. It's a very it speaks to the to Lauren and the Rapids and how good they've been over the last couple of years, but just how good the volleyball scene down here in Southwest Washington has been over the last 5-6 years. So.
Well, definitely. And I thought it was so fitting that Lauren Dreves got the final kill to cap off just an amazing high school career, because not only does her talent at the net and her quickness and her knowledge of the game and the way she works with her teammates, 3 different setters for 3 different years, all of whom have been worked with her to become one of the best in that position. But she just sets the emotional tone for that program. She's intense. She drives her teammates to become better. But then when they accomplish their goal, you just see how much winning means to her and how rare of an athlete that is to will her team to 3 straight state titles. So a perfect capstone for an outstanding high school career for Lauren Dreves. For our next moment, we go to cross country, and one of the best finishes of any race of the year happened in the 2A district race for the girls at Lewis River Golf Course. Came down to the end. Washougal's L. Thomas, who has been an outstanding runner all 4 years for the Panthers, and a newcomer, Ridgefield's Danica Allen, a former soccer player who was out for cross country for the first time as a junior. Well, L. Thomas had led the race the entire way. Danica Allen kind of comes lying in wait, gets on her shoulder, and then beats her in the final 2 or 3 meters, passes her for one of the best finishes that I can remember in a long time in cross country. You've been to a lot of cross country races, Tim. You know, quite often it's one or two runners that kind of distance themselves, and it very rarely comes down to the end. But there's almost nothing like the thrill of a race where it's two runners on each other's shoulders in the final moments.
Yeah, normally you go to a meet like that and you see the leaders, top 2, 3 or so, they'll run the first 2 miles or so with each other, and you think, oh, this is going to be a great finish. And then that last mile, some separation happens. And even though on the stat sheet, it might not look more than, a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, in space, it's 10, 20, 30, 40 meters. So to have a district championship meet just go right down to the wire like that, it's got to be, an exciting finish to the season, or to the local season at least.
Well, and being that L. Thomas had been a top 5 finisher at state the previous year, and had actually been runner-up at districts the previous 3 years. Again, she's runner-up, but nothing but respect for the career that she put together. She was just an amazing runner to watch, but it just goes to show how in cross country, you never know who's going to kind of come up. No one had, obviously Danica Allen, if you had paid attention to track and field, you knew she was an excellent 800 runner and 1600 runner. She is incidentally the daughter of the baseball coach out there at Ridgefield, Nick Allen. I saw him at Tri-Cities before the meet in the hotel, everyone getting their breakfast. And, he was obviously thrilled for how his daughter had ran, but she had been a soccer player and then just decided that wasn't for her anymore. And she jumps right in and, has success right off the bat with the district championship in cross country. Definitely she's going to be a runner to look at not only this spring, but next fall as a senior. All right, our number 3 moment was just a thrilling moment in the Class 1A soccer playoffs. Shayla Bradley, one of the best players, not only in the area, but perhaps in all of the Northwest club scene, playing soccer for La Center. She scores her 3rd goal of a playoff match with 30 seconds left as La Center beats Meridian 3-2 to earn its first state tournament win in girls soccer program history. The Wildcats would go on to place 4th in the Class 1A tournament. Really a team led by Shayla Bradley, just a transformative talent, especially at the small school level. Tim, you were there. What do you remember about the performance Shayla put on that night?
It was so obvious watching Shayla out there playing that she was clearly the best player on the field that night, as she is on many nights. Meridian was a good team. They were well organized and well coached, and they got the first goal. And then, then Shayla just kind of on her first goal, just kind of took over on her side of their side, and just kind of took over possession and just weaved her way through and got a shot off to tie it. And then Meridian scored, I think, again early in the second half to go up 2-1. And then Shayla scored again with about 16 minutes left to play to tie it at 2-2. And then both teams had shots in the opportunities the last 10 minutes. And it looked like it was heading down to, going into overtime, because, the clock was off, and you try to time it out and try to figure out how much, time there was. And, the center got one last push, and Shayla got sort of free and open to take a shot, and she didn't miss, and it was just an exciting win for the Wildcats, and it was their first state playoff win in program history, and they would go on to play in the state semifinals. So just a thrilling moment for Shayla, and also, as I recall, she was nursing a leg injury a little bit that she was trying to work her way through and manage. And so it was just a great moment for the Center program and for Shayla Bradley.
Well, especially Shayla has gotten a lot of her attention at the club level in the Portland Thorns Academy and going to some national level camps and everything. So for her to come out and play high school soccer is just a treat, and something where through her, she elevated a whole group of girls around her and a whole program, and certainly a capstone moment in that, to get that first state tournament win and lead La Center to a great season. All right, our number 2 moment, we go up to Kelso, where Mountain View football was looking to avenge what had been a close loss the previous year against the Highlanders, in which Kelso, they downed the Thunder en route to winning the 3A Greater St. Helens League title. Mountain View, with revenge on its mind, had to really work for it. It was kind of a back and forth game. Both running backs, Porter Drake for Mountain View and Aiden Mintanya for Kelso, were just on top of their game, rushing for over 200 yards apiece. It goes into overtime. Mountain View forces overtime by blocking a field goal on the last play of the game. And then the Thunder get a touchdown on their first possession of overtime. Kelso answers with a touchdown and decides they're going to end it right then and there. They go for 2. Mountain View comes up with a big stop on Aiden Montoya, holding him short of the goal line. I believe it was Aiden Denbo who had that big tackle to kind of stuff it up. Mountain View, with that win, they go on to clinch the Greater St. Helens League title outright with a win over Heritage the next week. It is never easy to win on the road in Kelso, but to do it in such thrilling fashion with the league title pretty much on the line, that to me was one of the best moments of the high school football season.
Yeah, I think anytime you have a game that goes into overtime, that you see coaches do that, go for 2. It's like we're gonna win it. We're gonna go right now, and watching the way that Kelso was running the ball, you would think it's a pretty good bet, to get the 3 yards that they need to get for the 2-point conversion. It was just one of those, I think it speaks to it's difficult to win in Kelso, because when you look at, Kelso finished tied with Evergreen and Prairie and had to go in and advance to the playoffs through a tiebreaker. And when you looked at when Mountain View played Evergreen and when Mountain View played Prairie, the games were not nearly as close. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of looking at that going, well, then they should probably have beaten Kelso also by a more comfortable margin. But again, the Highlanders stepped up, played a great game. And it was just a fantastic finish. Well,
and Kelso was a team that really came on toward the end of the year. They kind of figured out that Aiden Mintanya was their guy in the backfield, and really were able to mount a good offensive attack on that. But for Mountain View, I thought it was just a perfect, moment that encapsulates the grittiness of their season. This is a team with a first-year head coach, a team that maybe had some concerns about depth with a roster that was a little smaller than some of the others in that league. But when the Thunder needed to make a play, they got it done in thrilling fashion. And I just remember the relief and the joy and the exhaustion on a cold, kind of rainy night up in Kelso. Definitely a moment that Mountain View will look at as the highlight for their season.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of gave them a springboard. They had that competitive game mid-season that they needed to kind of move them towards the playoffs. They would go on. They would beat Heritage. They would beat Richland, a 4A team that was a state playoff team during Week 9, and then they won their Week 10 playoff game against Edmonds Woodway. I think it just kind of put them on that path to reach the state tournament.
And our top moment of the 2023 fall high school sports season, you couldn't ask for a more dramatic moment than this. Class 2A state soccer championship game goes to penalty kicks. Ridgefield's Ava Kruckenberg converts the clinching penalty kick as Ridgefield beats top-seeded West Valley of Spokane 3-2 to win its first girls state soccer championship. I always wonder, what's going through an athlete's mind when they step up in that kind of pressure moment, knowing that your one kick can make program history. Well, we'll have to ask Ava what that's like, because she had a rare opportunity to be able to experience that and come through in the clutch. Obviously, a shout out to goalkeeper Gabriella Semlik, who made 2 saves in the penalty kick shootout. But no moment in sports really can be more nerve-wracking than a soccer penalty kick shootout. For Ridgefield to come through and get it done and to keep their nerve just was an amazing accomplishment for the Spudders, and one that they'll remember forever.
Right, and then Ava had 2 moments in the postseason run with that, because in the quarterfinals at 5, that went to penalty kicks, and came down to Ava in the 5th spot of the PK. She converts, Spudders win against Fife to reach the state semifinals, and then they came back and kind of repeated the scenario in the state championship game.
And in the process, kind of made a mockery of them being a number 7 seed.
Yeah, that sort of happens. It's like every year. It's like the 2A Greater St. Helens League does very well, and I think they have to spread them out through the bracket. Because you don't want them meeting up too early. I think as it was, I think River and RA Long met up in the state quarterfinals. So I think part of that is they're just trying to spread the teams through the bracket a little bit. But I think maybe some folks in and around the state thought maybe the 2A wasn't quite as good as it's been in the past, and so that kind of drops them down. Obviously, just having these teams like RA Long and River and Richfield, and even Hawkinson had a nice late season run as well, showed that they beat up on each other, and that competition during the league season pays off down in the postseason.
Well, just the grit that Ridgefield showed in the state tournament, like you mentioned, getting that going on the road to beat a number 2 seed in Fife in a penalty kick shootout. Well, then they get to play a River team that had been kind of their nemesis, a Columbia River team that had beat them twice in the regular season. They get past the Rapids, and then not only do they beat the top-seeded West Valley of Spokane team there, they twice came back from 1 goal down in that match. So a Spudders team that could never be counted out, that beat the toughest competition that you could throw up against them, and ultimately won in thrilling fashion.
Right, and then in that quarterfinal game at Fife, it was a scoreless match through I think 70 minutes, and then Fife scored the first goal. And Ridgefield answered within like a minute to make it 1-1, and then it eventually got into PKs. And speaking also of River, there are 2 losses to River. One of those losses was via penalty kick. And I remember Gabriella Semilik after the Fife game talking about losing in the penalty kick and how that kind of changed her mindset going in to the ones that she handled in the playoffs.
Well, that's going to put a wrap on our 2023 fall sports season. Like we just ran through, a lot of highlights, a lot of dramatic moments, a lot of just really great performances by kids, from teams that represent their community and their school so well. I'm excited for the winter season. Obviously, we're going to have basketball. We have some fun developments in wrestling that we're going to talk about in a couple weeks with a big tournament that's kind of getting a renewed stage to set on. But next week, we're going to do something special in that in this episode of Varsity360, next Thursday, we are going to reveal the all-region football team. So you'll definitely want to tune in for that, for a sneak peek of who the all-region football team players are. Once again, I'm Micah Rice, sports editor at the Columbian with Tim Martinez, and tune in next week.